During a family vacation, my sister shoved my 6-year-old daughter out of the hotel room barefoot and crying, then left her in the hallway for 3 hours. The room is just for family, she claimed. My parents agreed with her. I didn't shout. I took action. 3 days later, their lives began to fall apart. When I let my daughter go on vacation with my family, I told myself it would be good for her sunshine cousins, grandparents, salt air. What could possibly go wrong? I pictured photos of sand castles and sticky ice cream smiles. My husband Spencer and I both had to work, so we stayed home and let them take Hazel. It felt harmless at the time because family right. For the record, I was wrong. A week later, they came back. They pulled into my parents' driveway in the middle of the afternoon, the car gleaming with sunscreen and smugness. Everyone was talking at once, my sister Belle, Mom and Dad, their overlapping laughter sounding like a soundtrack they'd practiced. Hazel stepped out last, holding her stuffed fox by the tail. The sunlight caught her hair, and for a fleeting second I thought she looked older, one of those tiny growth spurts that happen when you blink. Then she looked up at me and her face was far too serious for 6. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, crouching down. "Did you have fun?" She nodded quickly, the kind of nod you give when a teacher asks if you understand the math problem. Belle leaned across the car roof, sunglasses flashing. You should have seen her, Dana. So peaceful once she settled down. The whole trip was actually peaceful. Peaceful, my family's favorite word for when someone is quiet enough to forget about. Mom handed me a seashell magnet. See, perfect trip. I smiled just enough to get by. Hazel pressed herself against my side, clutching my shirt. Her grip said more than her face ever could. The drive home was quiet, just the hum of the tires and Hazel's soft breathing in the back seat. With every mile, the silence grew heavier. She didn't ask for music. She didn't hum. She just stared out the window as if the world were somewhere far away. By the time we reached home, my stomach ached from trying not to imagine what might have happened. At dinner, Hazel just pushed her food around. Normally, she tells stories that wander in circles until I lose track of who's who. That night, nothing. "Maybe she's just tired," Spencer said when he caught me watching her. Maybe, I said, but the word didn't feel true. After dinner, Hazel went straight to her room without asking for a bedtime story. That had never happened before, not once in her life. The little nightlight painted the walls gold. Her stuffed fox sat on the pillow like a silent witness. I tucked her in. "Did you have fun with Grandma and Aunt Belle?" She nodded, then whispered almost too quietly to hear. I wasn't too loud today, was I? The question didn't make sense. "You loud, no honey." "Why?" She blinked. "Then I can sleep inside, right?" My heart stuttered. "Of course you can." "Why would you think you couldn't?" I asked. She took a shaky breath. "Aunt Belle said, when I'm loud, I have to wait outside until I'm quiet. Grandma said, good girls don't cry." I waited a long time. The room seemed to shrink around us. I kept my voice gentle. Outside, where she pointed to the door. In the hallway. It was dark, but I was quiet, so they let me back in. The blood in my body turned to ice. What else did they say? Her eyes filled with tears. That the room was just for family. That sentence broke something in me. I wanted to scream, to drive through the night and make them look me in the eye. But Hazel's face stopped me. She was watching for my reaction, measuring how scared she should be. So I smiled, that brittle emergency mom smile, and said, "You're my family always. No one can change that." She nodded and closed her eyes, clutching the fox. I sat on the edge of her bed until the house went still, anger burning through me like a fever. The next morning, the kitchen felt too bright. I'd been awake half the night hearing Hazel's voice in my head. Aunt Belle said the room was just for family. Spencer poured coffee, watching me pace. "You're calling them," he said. "I'm calling them." I dialed. Belle answered, bright as sunlight. "Dana, everything okay? I need to ask you something." Hazel told me you made her stand in the hallway. A pause, then a laugh. "Oh, that. She was fine. We just needed some peace and quiet. So you actually sent her out there? She was misbehaving. She said, her voice light but defensive. Everyone was trying to rest. Did you lock the door? Oh my God. Dana, you're being dramatic. It was just a few minutes. She said 3 hours. That's ridiculous. She's exaggerating. My throat went dry. And you told her the room was just for family. Another laugh, sharper now. It was a joke. You always take things so seriously. I'm taking this seriously because you humiliated my daughter. From somewhere behind her, Mom called out. She's fine. Don't start a fight over nothing. Nothing, I repeated. You call that nothing? Belle sighed like I was a child throwing a tantrum. You weren't there, Dana. You don't know how loud she gets. We were exhausted. I said nothing. She filled the silence. You always blow things out of proportion. You've always been the sensitive one. I'm sensitive, I said quietly, because you made my daughter cry in a hotel hallway. The line went still. Then Belle said, Cool it now. You need to calm down. I ended the call. Spencer looked at me. Well, they did it, I said. Hazel padded into the kitchen, a sleepy smile on her face, her hair sticking up. I pulled her close and kissed the top of her head. She didn't need to hear what I just heard. Something in me settled. Not calm, not forgiveness, just something sharp and final. They thought it was over, that I'd let it go. They were wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, hearing Hazel's little voice in a loop. The room was just for family. Family. What a beautiful word to hide a rot behind. By morning, my anger had nowhere to go, so it turned inward. I kept asking myself the question that always comes after betrayal. How did I not see it coming? That's the thing about my family. They don't start with disasters. They start with little preferences that look harmless until they become laws of nature. Belle was 2 years older, but she might as well have been born on a higher floor. She was the star, the artist, the child who turned cardboard boxes into movie sets. I was the one who tidied up afterward so no one tripped on the cables. When she got her first camera, Dad called it an investment in her future. When I got my first microscope, he said, That's nice, honey. Maybe you'll be a pharmacist someday. They said they loved us equally, but equality in our house was a myth told to keep me quiet. When Belle screened her first student film, a shaky, endless piece about the meaning of shadows, my parents cried like they'd just witnessed genius. When I won a science competition, Mom smiled and said, You've always been so practical. Practical. Translation, invisible. I learned early that my achievements were appreciated. The way you appreciate plumbing, you only notice it when it breaks. Belle married another filmmaker, a man who used words like vision process and funding gap. They spent years chasing the dream, and my parents financed the Chase Rent childcare groceries. It was all part of supporting the arts. Meanwhile, I was working my way through scholarships, double shifts, and coffee strong enough to burn holes in my stomach lining. Nobody offered to help. They just said, You're so independent, Dana. Independence. That was my role in the family play, the one who doesn't need applause. By the time Hazel was born, they'd already turned grandparenting into performance art. Belle's kids had entire photo albums. Hazel had 3 pictures with them, total, one of which included my mother looking at her phone. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself love doesn't have to be symmetrical, but it does actually. It really, really does. Then my company started to grow. The quiet little bioinformatics project that nobody had asked about suddenly became profitable. 1 contract, then 2, then headlines. And almost immediately, the family that had treated me like a utility bill remembered my number. The first time Mom called just to talk, I thought she'd dialed me by mistake. Then she said, Your father and I were just saying how much we miss Hazel. We'd love to visit. Hazel was 3 then, still mixing up her colors, still learning how to count to 10. She'd barely spent an hour alone with them before, but sure, now they missed her. When they arrived, they came with presents, questions, and a sudden burst of interest. It felt staged, but tempting, like a sale that's too good to be true. I wanted to believe it. God, I wanted to believe it. Then came the requests. It started small. Belle's editing equipment broke. Could you help out a little? Then we're behind on the mortgage, just for a month or two. Then your sister's film got into a festival, but the travel costs are so high. Each ask came wrapped in guilt and gratitude. You're doing so well, honey. We hate to ask. And I, idiot, that I am, kept saying yes. Because I could afford it. Because it felt like connection, even if I had to pay the entrance fee. After a while, the visits became less about Hazel and more about logistics, who needed what, when, and how much. I turned into the family ATM with a smile, and still the little jabs kept coming. You're lucky your field's in demand, Belle said once, sipping wine I'd bought. Your sister works so hard, Mom added. It's just not fair how competitive the arts are. Lucky. That word lodged under my skin like glass. They called me successful, but they said it like an accusation. I think it bothered them that I'd built something solid without their help, that I'd stopped needing them before they ever learned how to show up. And then came the vacation. Belle called first, her voice bright and sugary. We're doing a family trip. The kids are begging for Hazel to come. She'll have the best time. I hesitated. My gut said no. My guilt said yes. Then Mom chimed in. It'll be good for her, Dana. The cousins adore each other. You can trust us. They made it sound like an act of love, not a transaction. But of course I paid for it anyway. Hazel's ticket part of the hotel, the shared expenses. I was used to paying. That was my role now, financier of togetherness. Spencer raised an eyebrow. Are you sure about this? They're family, I said. He muttered, so are wolves. I laughed, but the sound caught in my throat. When they came to pick Hazel up, everyone was beaming. Belle's kids chanted her name. My parents promised to take good care of her. Hazel was glowing 6 years old and ready for adventure. I told myself this was progress. I told myself they were trying. I told myself I was being paranoid. And for a while that lie held long enough for them to drive away, long enough for the house to go quiet, long enough for me to believe that the past didn't always repeat itself. But the thing about patterns is that they don't disappear. They just wait. And that's how we got here. Hazel barefoot in a hotel hallway, and me staring at the ceiling, wondering when exactly I learned to mistake cruelty for family tradition. The morning after everything, I stopped pretending. Hazel left for school with her fox in one hand and a half-eaten piece of toast in the other. I watched her walk down the driveway until she turned the corner, the little backpack bouncing like a heartbeat. Then the house went still. Silence. My favorite liar. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, staring at a spreadsheet of standing payments glowing like a confession, mortgage transfers, temporary support course deposits, allowances, everything that had slowly turned me into a lifeline I didn't remember offering. Spencer leaned against the doorframe, watching me like someone studying a live wire. You're really doing this. The first click was small. Cancel transfer. The second louder. By the fifth, my heart was racing. Each confirmation felt like cutting through tendon, painful, deliberate, irreversible. When the last one flashed payment canceled, I closed the lid and saw my reflection in the black screen. Eyes raw, mouth steady. Hazel's voice flickered through my head. I wasn't too loud today. Was I, family? That word doesn't mean what I thought it did. 2 days later, the phone rang. Of course it did. Hey. Belle chirped, sounding too sweet. The payment for the kids' club didn't go through. Some glitch. No glitch. Silence hummed between us, static and disbelief. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not paying anymore. Her laugh was quick, sharp, and defensive. Is this about that joke again? That joke was you locking my daughter outside for 3 hours. God, you're so dramatic. I learned from the best. A pause. Then you've changed. You think money makes you better than us. No, I said. It just makes you notice me now right before I disappear. I ended the call before she could recover. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. Outside, a delivery truck rumbled past. Someone walked a dog. The world stayed normal like it hadn't just cracked open. The next day, it was my parents. The mortgage payment didn't go through, my father said, skipping hello. I know. You can't just stop Dana, we'll lose the house. Then sell it. Mom's voice slid into the call, high and thin. After everything we've done for you. Exactly. For a moment no one breathed. Then I hung up. The air around me felt electric. Not triumph, but something colder, like standing in the ashes of your own house realizing you're free, because there's nothing left to burn. The messages started that night. You're punishing us. You'll regret this. We just needed peace and quiet. Peace and quiet. The phrase made me laugh so hard I scared the cat. I didn't answer any of them. At night, guilt came in bursts like static shocks under my ribs. But each morning I remembered Hazel in that hallway barefoot crying, and the guilt died all over again. By day 3, the silence had a strange kind of peace to it. I woke up without checking my phone, without dreading who needed what. Even my sleep felt lighter, like my brain finally stopped doing math on who I was keeping afloat. A week later, the doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I opened it. My parents stood there like actors waiting for applause, and Belle was between them, her sunglasses shoved into her hair like a crown. Dana. Mom began, smiling too wide. We just want to clear the air. There's nothing to clear. They swept into the hallway anyway, dragging perfume and tension with them. Belle spoke first. You've gone insane, you know that, all this over one misunderstanding. One misunderstanding, I said. You left a 6-year-old alone in a hotel hallway. She was misbehaving, Belle snapped. You were teaching her respect, I countered. You were teaching her fear. My father stepped forward, palms up like he could still play peacemaker. Dana, sweetheart, we said we were sorry. What more do you want? For you to stop living on my money. The words fell between us like a hammer. Mom's face pinched. You've become cruel. No, I said quietly. I've become done. For a second nobody spoke. Then Hazel's footsteps creaked on the stairs. She stood halfway down, her stuffed fox clutched against her chest, watching the scene unfold in wide-eyed silence. Go back to your room, honey, I said gently. She didn't move until Belle turned toward her, and then she bolted. When the door finally closed behind them, the house didn't feel cleaner. It felt heavier, like every argument still hovered in the air waiting for me to breathe it in. That night, Spencer poured 2 glasses of wine and said nothing. He didn't need to. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was dense with all the words we'd both wanted to say for years. I stared out the window at the streetlights blinking through the rain. The rebellion didn't feel like victory. It felt like ash, like burning down a bridge only to realize you're still standing in the smoke. But beneath the sting there was something steadier. Not joy, not relief. Something closer to clarity. I checked my phone one last time. No missed calls, no new messages. The screen stayed black, and for the first time in a long while the silence belonged to me. I thought that would be the end of it. But endings have a way of fighting back. If there's one thing I've learned about peace, it's that it never lasts long enough to finish a cup of coffee. A week after the confrontation, life had almost reset. Hazel was building cardboard castles for school. Spencer was humming while packing her lunch. Even the air felt softer, like it had forgotten how to burn. Then my inbox chimed. Subject: The Secret Life of the CEO. For your consideration, Belle. My stomach dropped. I should have deleted it. I should have thrown my laptop out the window and moved to another continent. Instead, I clicked. The email read, You always cared about image. Maybe this will help people see the truth. There was a link. Of course there was a link. I pressed play. Soft piano music. A clean white title card, The Secret Life of the CEO Inside the Ethics of EOS Bioinformatics. EOS Bioinformatics, my company. My work, my carefully built promise that science and morality could coexist without devouring each other. Bell knew exactly where to strike. The footage looked professional: stolen interviews, conference clips, screenshots of my talks about transparency and responsibility. My face flashed beside graphs and headlines as if I were the poster child for hypocrisy. Then her voice came in calm, smooth, almost reverent, like a funeral announcement. Behind every so-called ethical company lies a truth they don't want you to see. A photo of me at a charity gala. Cut to Mom saying I've always been about appearances. Then Belle again. She abandoned her family. She buys virtue with money. I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't art. It was an execution. I could already see the fallout: investors pulling back, reporters sniffing for scandal, my board demanding answers. My company lived on credibility. Once that cracked, everything would collapse. Belle knew exactly how to wound me. She'd assembled the piece like a weapon, part truth, part lie, entirely poisonous. Then came the final blow. Hazel, blurred but unmistakable, her small face on the beach, eyes red from salt and exhaustion. The voiceover intoned, "Even her daughter has learned that compassion ends where profit begins." I froze. It was a clip I'd taken years ago when Hazel had scraped her knee, now twisted into evidence of neglect. Belle had pulled it from a shared family folder and sharpened it into a weapon. My throat burned. They weren't just trying to destroy my reputation. They were using my child. I slammed the laptop shut so hard the coffee mug rattled. The kitchen fell into silence except for my pulse. I called her. She picked up on the first ring. "Impressive editing," I said. "I told you." Belle replied, all soft righteousness. "People should know what kind of person you really are." "You mean the person who stopped paying your bills? You call it boundaries. I call it cruelty. Investors will call it fraud once they see the full picture." "You're threatening me." She laughed. "Oh, Dana, it's just storytelling. Unless, of course, you'd rather it never goes public. That's still an option. You just have to make things right." Her words landed like ice. Make things right. This wasn't revenge, it was blackmail. She wanted money. Silence money. The price of peace. I hung up before I said something that would end with police tape. Outside, the world went on as if ordinary: someone mowing a lawn, a kid on a bike, sunlight pretending everything was fine. By noon, I was in my lawyer's office. She watched the first 2 minutes of the video, jaw tightening. "She's naming your company directly." "Yes." "Then this isn't just defamation, it's commercial sabotage. And she's using your daughter's image without consent. That's a second lawsuit waiting to happen." I sat there shaking, the kind of shaking that feels like rage trying to take shape. "Can I stop her? If she publishes, we'll file immediately. If she threatens to, that's blackmail," the lawyer said. "Either way, you have leverage. The courts will be on your side." For the first time in days, I could breathe again. Law, cold, clean, relentless, was finally mine to wield. We set up a meeting. My lawyer insisted I let her handle it. I said fine, but I'd be in the room. That night, Hazel was asleep when I checked on her. The nightlight turned her hair gold. I brushed it back and whispered, "They don't get to touch us anymore." She murmured something in her dreams. Maybe castle, maybe safe. The next morning, my family arrived like they were showing up to a talk show. Polite smiles, polished lies. The lawyer began, voice steady. "This film contains false statements and defamatory material. If you release or distribute it, my client will pursue legal and criminal action, including the use of a minor's likeness for blackmail." The word blackmail landed like a stone. Belle's smirk twitched. "It's a documentary." "No," I said. It's a ransom note with editing. My mother gasped softly as if I'd said something obscene. My father started a sentence and couldn't finish it. You think you're untouchable, Belle snapped. You built your empire on lies. Funny, I said. That's exactly what you're doing now. The lawyer folded her hands. If the video appears anywhere, we'll take it down within hours and pursue damages. The penalties will be severe. Belle's face went pale. She sat there for a few seconds, silent, jaw tight, trying to find a version of this moment where she still had power. The room held its breath. Then, fine. You win. You always win. She stormed out. My parents followed like smoke. When the door finally closed behind them, the house didn't feel cleaner. It felt heavier, like every argument still hung in the air, waiting for me to breathe it in. That night, Spencer poured 2 glasses of wine and didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was full of everything we'd both wanted to say for years. I stared out the window at the streetlights blinking through the rain. The rebellion didn't feel like victory. It felt like ash, like burning down a bridge and realizing you're still standing in the smoke. But under the sting, there was something steadier. Not joy, not relief, something like clarity. I drove to Hazel's school and parked across the street. The kids spilled out loud and alive. Hazel ran toward me, her face open and unheard by the world. They'd tried to destroy that. They'd tried to make her part of their story. Never again. That night, I emailed my lawyer proceed with full restrictions and the no contact order. Then I opened the family group chat and hit delete. The screen went blank. The silence that followed was cleaner than forgiveness. Hazel slept soundly. I stood in the doorway watching her chest rise and fall, thinking about how they'd called it truth. They'd called it art. But it had always been cruelty dressed up as honesty. They thought they could use her to reach me. Now they never will. They hated me because I had more. But what I have can't be bought. A year later, everything looks different. The company's stronger than ever, new investors, new lab space, more awards than I have shelves for. Turns out integrity sells better once you survive an attempted character assassination. Hazel's thriving too. She's 7 now, bright, loud, a one-girl parade of stories and songs. She fills every room she walks into. She laughs with her whole face, and when she talks, no one tells her to hush. She knows now that her voice isn't something to shrink. We haven't spoken to my family since that day. I don't block their numbers. I just never feel the need to look. The silence stayed clean. Every now and then, someone from the extended family drops gossip like breadcrumbs. Belle's marriage didn't make it past spring, creative differences apparently. He said she was holding him back. She said he misunderstood her vision. Translation, divorce, custody, dispute, chaos. She quit filmmaking, or maybe filmmaking quit her. It never paid. It only burned through every dollar my parents once bragged about spending. Now she's doing something stable, though no one remembers what. Office job. Small paycheck. No soundtrack. My parents downsized too. All that money they poured into her dreams evaporated faster than sunscreen in July. I could feel sorry for them, but I don't. They chose their masterpiece. Hazel doesn't ask about them anymore. She's too busy building cardboard kingdoms and narrating them at full volume. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if I went too far. Then I remember that hallway, the locked door, the sound of my daughter crying. So tell me, did I go too far or not far enough?